Hey, this is Carlos. Welcome back to part two of our ongoing saga of how to get your ex back. Now, this is a very touchy topic. This is one of those areas that it's emotionally charged like nothing else. And I have to warn you up front the probability is actually very high if you use solid strategies, the things that I teach, that you will be able to get your ex back. But it's never 100% perfect. There's always going to be the chance that he's maybe moved on, or maybe he was emotionally numb at the point where he finally did break up with you, so it was actually too far to repair. There's just so many different things. Who knows if you're going to really want him back after you realize, hey, you know what? Maybe we didn't have it so great before. But in any case, you got to remember and recognize that it's never 100% certain. So you got to remember that up front. Now, there are steps, though, that you can take, and very important ones at that. First, I want to talk a little bit about some of the statistics about breaking up with a guy, and this is kind of a touchy area too, because most people, by and large, are actually still hung up on their ex. 71% of people say that they still think about their ex a little too much. 81% are of singles actually feel this way. Now you're probably like, what? Wait a minute, Carlos, you said 71%. Yeah, the 71% is actually everybody. Pretty much everyone, 71% of everybody feels that way, but only 81% are single people, meaning that, yeah, a ton of people who are in relationships, who are probably even married, are still kind of holding on to that certain somebody that they think is either their soulmate or that they really still think about quite a bit. Everybody does this. I've even flashed back to previous relationships that I've lost. It's just something you can't avoid. 57% of singles say that thinking about their ex prevents them from actually finding a new love in their life. And that's something we don't want to have happen to us, where you miss the opportunity that's right in front of you just because you're hung up on somebody that you either couldn't or shouldn't have. Okay? Very important distinction there. Let's talk about the no contact rule. Generally speaking, the best rule for the first week, the first 7 to 10 days, is absolutely no contact. I talked a little bit about this last week. You don't want to be you don't want to be contacting this person and badgering them and basically reminding them of all the reasons why they didn't want to be in the relationship with you. I mean, maybe he was feeling a little smothered. Maybe he needed a little space. Maybe he really did, and it wasn't a commitment phobic sort of thing. In which case, the no contact rule still stands. You've got to be able to give him the breathing space. And I call it giving him the gift of missing you. You want him to feel like he misses you on a certain level. Because if he can't miss you, then he won't ever miss the relationship, and he won't come back to the relationship. And that's why it's so critical that you do it. So the first reason you try and stay away from him is that right after a breakup, that's when you're most emotionally vulnerable, and you don't want to fall victim to all those things that are going to make you act out of insecurity and possibly even panic quite a bit. The second reason is that he's going to wonder why you're not in contact, and that's the part that we're really focusing on here, and that's the reason why the no contact rule works. But you can't stay out of contact forever, and that's why you have to know how to start contact and which way to do it. And I'm going to give you a very important tip on that at the end of this video, so stay with me. Now, there are some times when you do have to get in contact. Maybe there's something you've got a legal paper of his, or you've got some possession of his that he really needs to get back, or vice versa. In which case, keep things civil, minimize the contact, and don't, if you can avoid, don't let him see you. There's a very important reason for that, and it's primarily having to do with how he is imagining you and imagining the relationship. Him actually seeing you diffuses some of that tension that you want that will bring him back to the relationship. Now, why did he do it? Why did he break up with you? Well, there's a ton of different reasons why guys break up with women, okay? One of the primary ones is he just didn't feel attraction anymore. And this happens, and it can be fixed, and it's one of the more easily remedied if you know how to do it. And it's something I talk about in my programs as well. Another reason is he's bored. I mean, guys do need a certain amount of novelty, as women do, in the relationship, in order to make it something they want to stick with and something they want to keep going. Maybe he didn't know that his needs weren't being met. You know, his needs simply weren't being met, and that could be emotional or sexual needs. A lot of the times this can be happening, but you just don't even have any clue, because men are, of course, not that great at communicating, especially when it comes to things like breaking bad news. So the last thing they want to do is hurt you, and sometimes it's easier for him to break up with you than to actually tell you this. That's why communication is so critical. Another reason is he's just not feeling that admiration and respect, which, by the way, is the most important thing you can give him within the relationship, even more than love. This is love for men. Admiration and respect is how a man feels love, just the way you have a very specific love language. And this is one of the big things that most women miss and the reasons why they can't get their ex back. Sometimes he doesn't know what he wants. Sometimes he genuinely doesn't know, and it comes across as commitment phobia. But very often it's just him not really taking the time to sit down and think it through and decide what it is he really wants from a relationship. Another reason is he cheated, but that's not the reason. Or you cheated, who knows? But the relationship itself, it's not the cheating. It's why he cheated in the first place. There's always a reason. There's a need not being met, typically. So the first thing you've got to do is you've got to have a goal. All right, now what is the goal? Well, the goal is that if you're going to win him back, you've got to have your own recovery, if you will, on its way. And you have to be on that path to recovery, and that involves goals. So that means having a goal for yourself. What kind of goal would you want to have? Well, I'm going to talk about those in a second too. But first are the good and bad reasons for wanting to get back together. This is really important too, because again, sometimes you don't even have a really good reason. You're just in emotional panic, and so therefore you want to have the relationship, but that's not a good enough reason. Some bad reasons are you feel like he's your whole life. What does that mean exactly? He's your whole life. It means you probably were possibly a little insecure, possibly a little too focused on the relationship and too there. Okay. So it's not that he's really your whole life. It's that there may have been some codependency issues there that need to be resolved. Another bad reason is that you feel like you'll never find anybody better than him, which is, we know that's not true, right? You've probably been in a process of somewhat upgrading the prospects or your boyfriend selection criteria over the years. Things have probably been getting at least mildly better in terms of the guys you've been choosing. Usually that's the case, whether you realize it or not. So you will find somebody better. I can assure you of that. It absolutely will happen. Another bad reason is that you're just simply not happy being alone. Ooh, that's not a good reason, okay? You don't want to hinge your emotional well-being on another person. Another really bad reason is thinking that you're going to die without him. This is kind of teenager thinking, where we get into this mindset of, oh, I'll simply die without that person. Well, what are some of the good reasons? Well, the good reasons can be that the breakup might have been, it wasn't a good decision. It was a rash decision you made in the middle of a huge fight. I've had that happen, and I've gotten back together as a result of it. Another reason is that you were probably a good reason that is acceptable anyways to get back together is that things were good most of the time you were together. Just it might have been some of those off times that threw you guys off, and that's what he hinged his breakup on. Here's a big one. Both of you want the same things out of life. You're heading in the same direction. You're doing the same thing. It feels right in a lot of ways, like you're in the same groove. This is a really good show called House of Cards. And the two characters on there, Claire and Frank Underwood, who play the president and first lady, at least later on in the seasons, they are the worst people in the world. They're just horrible people, right? They're just evil. Evil is the only thing I can say about them. But at the same time, in a sick sort of way, you root for them being together because they're going in the same direction. They really do fit together in the things they want to accomplish. Okay? It's a very important thing. Now, I'm not saying to do it like they do in the show, but you get the idea of how important that is. Now, there's things you shouldn't do during this time period of not contacting them, okay? Things you should be very careful about doing in general, which are you don't want to be calling in sick to work. Don't jeopardize your career or your income because of your emotional state. Don't party. Don't go out partying too much and drinking a lot. You don't want to stay home a lot either. That means you're not going out, which means you're not going to – it's kind of a downward spiral. It leads to depression a lot of times. Don't go crying on all your friends' shoulders. They don't like it. And your best friend, even your bestest best friend, your BFF forever, ever, is not going to be happy with you if this goes on too much. So don't wear out your welcome that way either. And again, making any big decisions in your life, things like getting a boob job, like getting a tattoo, like moving to the other coast, like quitting your job. No big decisions when you're in this panic state, okay? Very, very important to remember. The things you can do are some small appearance changes. Small appearance changes are things like getting in shape, changing your diet. Wardrobe changes are excellent. Gives you a reason to go out and shop. That's right. Carlos gives you permission to go out and do a little shopping. Hairstyle. Change your hairstyle. Change your hair color. That's fine. Small changes like this are great, and they lead to you feeling renewed on a certain level. Some other things you should prioritize. You got to reprioritize your life in terms of your activities. Number one is you've got to get back with your friends. Get out there, start hanging out with your friends, start doing the things with your friends you used to do. Get back connected to your family. If your family is local, or even if they're not, and you have a decent relationship with any of them, you should be renewing that connection too. Sometimes we ignore those as a result of our relationships, and that our relationships suffer, but our relationship with our family is really important. Remember, they have to keep taking you back. And the third thing is focus on your exercise and your health, of course. Make sure that you're focusing on that because it's so important. If you're not in a good place when he makes the decision that he wants to entertain the notion of coming back to you, that's going to bite you on the butt, okay? You can also focus on work, kind of jump back into your work, get a little bit further with your career, with whatever you're doing for your work. You can renew a hobby. You can start writing your journal. You can, again, reconnect with the friends. Really important things you need to do. Now, when it comes to building up your self-confidence, nothing can top getting him back. I mean, the actual act of getting him back. There's two ways you can try doing it, all right? One is that you blitz him, you possibly nag him a little bit with your contact. You call him a lot, or you show up on his doorstep, or whatever it may be. But there's one way that is actually really, really good to get a guy back, to get your ex-boyfriend back, and that is using texting. That's right. The bane of our society at this point is actually one of the best ways to win a man back, and that is to do it through texting. Now, I've got a quick video on how to do this and how effective it can be. If you want to go over to take a look at it, I recommend you do. Go to datingadviceguru.com/textyourx. That's datingadviceguru.com/textyourx. TEXTYOUREX. Text your ex. You will get him back if you want him back, and there is a strategy for doing it. And one of the best ways, again, is using text. It's amazing how it works. One of the ways that reasons that it works so well is if you use phone, if you use that to contact him, you're not going to be very prepared. And what's going to happen is you'll talk to him, but you'll lose control somewhere in the conversation, or you might freak out a little bit or panic, and then it goes the wrong way. And you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Or you'll leave a voicemail and do that. It doesn't happen in text because it's like writing a mini note that you can think about and plan and use effectively, and you can take your time with. It's so, so good. So go on over to datingadviceguru.com/textyourx, and I'll be talking to you again soon. This is Carlos Cavallo from datingadviceguru.com.